Let's talk about Abigail. We'll get us bigger. We have a banner for it. Look at this. It's beautiful. I've shrunk us down so that banner shows up. So let's talk about Abigail. So the story is a group of, it's like I have so much stuff to transition as I'm doing this. I'll get to it. We are there. We have a group of, I guess, kind of thieves and kidnappers who've been hired to kidnap the daughter of a very rich man. That girl is named Abigail. The conditions, so they go in, they kidnap this girl, they bring her to this mansion, and these five kidnappers have to watch over the girl for 24 hours, and when they do, they'll get $7 million each. They're told, don't give your name and don't give any backstory. And so they decided to give themselves the names of the Rat Pack, or at least the Giancarlo Esposito character does that. And so it sounds simple. They just got to watch over a girl for 24 hours. And this is, of course, spoiled in the trailer, but the girl is a vampire and all insanity ensues. Dante, what did you think of Abigail?
First off, I did like the cast. This was Angus Cloud's last movie, R.I.P. For those of you who don't know, Angus Cloud was in Euphoria, one of the most popular characters, Fez, and he, OD this year. So this was his last film, which is kind of sad, actually.
Yeah, she also mentioned it stars Melissa Barrera.
Who I'm in love with right now. I think she is amazing, man. I'm going to talk more about her later, but Melissa Barrera was phenomenal for me in this movie. You had Dan Stevens, who's just always a great actor. He was in the show Legion. It was a great cast. The story, okay, tongue in cheek, sure. Mm-hmm. It had that. It lacks something for me that I just can't put my finger on, because I feel like they kind of promoted this as a horror film, and it really wasn't. It was more of a comedy to me. Like tonally, it was all over the place. I think the actress, I think Alicia Weir, is that the young actress?
Alicia Weir, yeah.
I thought she was brilliant. She has a future. That girl can act her. See, I'm watching my words. I'm watching my profanity.
Yeah. We got 10 more minutes, and then we can swear.
I am literally my ongoing battle with vulgarity. I am fighting it. I'm not going to curse. I'm not going to curse. She can act, but she has a future. I thought the cast was great. I just thought the story was everything was great in the first 30 minutes. I'll put it to you that way.
All right.
And after that, it falls apart.
Yeah. Okay. So I think it's weird. I think we have the same feeling about the movie, but I think we see it a little bit differently. To me, this felt like basically a vampire escape room. The whole idea that you have this cast of characters locked into a mansion, and they have to figure out how not only to get out, but how to survive as well. And they play a lot with all the vampire rules that are going on here. And, I think ultimately I had a good time with the movie, but at the same time, it was like, I'll say there's more good than bad. And I think the good kind of beat it out to where I would go ahead and recommend the movie. I think you're probably the better connoisseur of horror films than I am.
But here's the thing. Even from the trailer, I knew it wasn't going to be a straight up horror film. I knew it was going to be a little more tongue in cheek than that. And here's the thing. I didn't hate the movie. I felt like it wandered in ways that kind of left me like, okay, let's speed this up, please, because like, I'm sorry, but all the scenes with the vampire girl dancing, it's like, guys, we didn't need 20 scenes of her doing ballet. It's like, we get it. She's a vampire ballerina, right? Yeah. Like, we don't have to keep seeing her dance.
You only need to do it 3 times. They did it at the beginning. They did it in the middle, just to kind of remind you that she's a ballerina, and then there's a pivotal moment where the dancing becomes important. But then I think they did it 2 more times beyond that.
Yeah.
And it was just like, okay. But the one thing I did appreciate was, at least for me, and again, I'm not a connoisseur of horror films, but I was definitely kept on the edge of my seat throughout the whole thing, trying to figure out what was going to happen next. I sort of figured out the overarching theme of it, like why they're there. I kind of got that early on, but in terms of where are we going next and how are we going to take this vampire down, I felt like, and maybe it's my inexperience, but I felt like I was constantly guessing. I don't know. Was it predictable for you?
In a way of, I knew who was going to survive and who wasn't. Yes,
Yeah. Well,
I I know. I mean, but really, it was kind of like, okay, we see where this is going, and I will say I'm a little shocked how we got there towards the end, which is good. Which is
mhm,
good. I was a little like, okay, I didn't predict that part, but overall, I just felt like the deaths were very comical,
mhm.
like so over the top that it was like, okay, this isn't horror. This is like, this is exploitation for the most part, but in a good way,
Yeah.
right? But not horror at all.
Mhm,
There weren't even like any real jump scares for me in this film, which is weird. Like maybe one scene, but even then, it was like not a big jump scene
mhm.
or jump scare. I mean, so uh, to categorize this as horror, I can't. Horror comedy, sure.
Mhm. Horror comedy. I mean, I think they were light. Yeah, I guess you're right. I mean, some of like the crew, the crew of kidnappers. You had Angus's character. You also had who am I thinking? Peter's character, Kevin Durand.
Cameron
Um,
Durand, yeah,
yeah, it's like, yeah, they're kind of playing these up for laughs. Even the Dan Stevens character was set up for somewhat laughs, more the dark laughs. But Melissa's character was very straightforward, very very much a straight person. Catherine Newton, as much as I like the character, I felt like that they didn't go far enough with her.
I agree.
She just seems too much of a stereotypical Gen Z kid. And then you have Rickles in the middle, our person of color, and
Yeah,
it's kind of like I felt like it was fighting whether it wanted to be serious or whether it wanted to be funny, and I think tonally that's where I kind of lost. I got kind of lost in the sauce of this. I really wish they either went comedy or they went drama, and not trying to do a blend of the two.
yeah, and I think the audience is going to have a problem with that too when they see it. I do. Here's the thing: I do think this movie's going to do well, um,
Hmm.
just because there's nothing really out right now. So, and it's a horror film, so well, quote unquote horror.
Yeah.
So people will go watch it. But I think a lot of people are going to leave kind of feeling the same way I did, where it's like, okay, that was a film.
Hmm.
No, like, and it wasn't horrible and it wasn't great. It was just kind of like, I'll forget about it in a couple of days.
Yeah. Okay, so let's give me the bottom line here. Is it a recommend? And what's your final feelings about Abigail?
So look, man, I would say, just because based on the performances of the actors, it's a watch for me. Like, I tell people to go watch it. Like I said, Melissa Barrera is, she's just blowing me away, man. Like, I feel like the more and more I see of her, I want to see more of her in movies, right? And it was directed by the guy who did a few of the Scream movies. So if you like Scream, you'll probably like Abigail.
Hmm. Yeah, and for me, I think I would recommend it as well. Okay, so for someone who doesn't like horror films, I enjoyed it. It got me through. I was able to get from beginning to end, have the good number of scares. I think. Let me ask you this. To me, it felt a lot smarter than most horror films I watch, especially vampire films.
Well,
That may just be me, but do you think it was a smart film?
I feel like it knew what it wanted to be,
Mhm.
right? Even though the tone was all over the place, I think they knew what they were trying to do. And they wanted kind of like a fun horror film, right? Because that's what it is. And like Scream, right? Scream is a fun horror film, right? Like, it's an event. You go with your friends, and you expect Ghostface to just appear out of nowhere and have super strength for no reason. But you go there for that reason, because it's going to be goofy, it's going to be fun, and there'll be a few jump scares, right? I think that's what this movie is. It knows what it wanted to be.
Yeah, and there's also a puzzle to solve, which makes it somewhat engaging. Which is that escape room aspect to it.
Like
All
honestly,
right.
some of the more intriguing parts of the film was finding out the backstories of the thieves.
Hmm.
Like,
Yeah, you know, that whole opening scene segment in the beginning of the movie
yeah,
where Melissa Burr's character is basically doing cold readings on everybody,
yeah,
picking
that
out.
was a cool scene.
Yeah, I always enjoy that stuff, and it's a great way to introduce you to characters without having each of them explain their backstory.
Yeah,
Yeah, which gets to be cliched at times. All right, so a definite recommend from you and me about Abigail. I would say a tepid recommendation.
it's a
It's not.
soft watch. It's a soft recommendation. Like, you know, you won't completely waste your money,
Yeah.
but at the same time, don't expect like
Well, I think it could be a date film. We talked to I forgot what director. We talked to a director recently of a horror film, and he revealed to us that horror films are women are the largest audience, the majority audience of horror films, and this one definitely falls right into that. You have the female protagonist, you have the cute little girl who's the vampire. This will fall right into that wheelhouse there. So definitely. All right. So definitely recommend.